Hi everyone! Welcome to our fourth webinar here on Everyday Learner. My name is Professor Cherry Ann Garcia Durante, and I will be here speaking about the languages of apology. Let's get started. Now, if you're here for the first time and you haven't gone through the three webinars that we had in the past, you can still look it up. It's still on our YouTube page, and you can still get your certificates to a certain point in time. So we opened it up once again. So if you would want to check it out after this webinar, you are welcome to do so. For those who are here for the first time, you are welcome to subscribe to our channel here at Everyday Learner to get notified if we do webinars like this one, or if we do like some lectures on different topics like nursing, psychology, and the likes. Now, we also do how-to videos. So if you want some tips on your different study techniques, then probably you would want to subscribe here. Now, we are actually being viewed in from different parts of the Philippines and even the world. So we get a lot of comments from people who have subscribed to Everyday Learner, and we just want to tell you that we are so inspired by your sharing, by the words that you have given us, the comments, the praises. We appreciate it so highly. This is the reason why we're doing this. For those who are getting out of their way to tell us that they are inspired, then thank you so much, because you're the reason why we're here. And for those who are here right now live with us, can you please comment down below if you subscribe? Just write, I subscribe, I'm from, and tell us where you're from, and we will try to reply to you on the live chat. Okay, so let's get started. So the languages of apology is what we will be talking about this evening. If you have not yet went through our registration process, you can still do so. So it's on the description box, and it's also here on the screen. So you can just type it up and go and do the registration so that you can get your certificates later on. Now, there are different steps as to how you will get your certificates, and it's all found. The instructions of this is found on the registration form that we're giving you. Please go and fill it up. Okay, so let's begin. Now, you're probably wondering, why am I here? Why am I entering into a webinar that talks about apologies? Isn't it easy to apologize? You just say the words, I'm sorry. Because as you probably have the training to do so, when you were toddler or preschool, your mom probably said to you, when you took your classmate's toy or your seatmate's toy and she cried, your mom will probably tell you that's not the right thing to do. Give it back and say you're sorry. And probably what you did was you said, I'm sorry. Because the most primitive form of learning is actually imitation. And probably that is what you did. You just imitated the words from your mom and not knowing what this actually means. And if that is the only training that we have for apology, then probably that is the reason why our apologies do not work for some people, or for others, it doesn't work for most people. So what is missing? What's wrong? So probably we're not speaking their language. So what are these languages of apology? Now, as I told you, once again, let me have this call to action. Can you please do subscribe if you're here for the first time? Just click that red button to get notified for our upcoming webinars. And as you can see, we have a little bit of difference in topics from other webinars. Not that we want to shy away from distance learning. Actually, we did one last week. We did distance learning, practical guide to distance learning for students and parents. However, most of our webinars are actually not on that lane, not necessarily on the online learning lane. But I know that you can get a lot from the webinars that we're doing. If you're a teacher, if you're a student, if you're a learner, if you're a parent, or if you're a human being who just wants to improve his or her relationships, then you are on the right place. So please do subscribe and give us some love by liking or hitting that like button. Okay, so let's continue. Now, before we go to the different languages of apology, let's first talk about several truths about hurting people. Now, people who are hurt, these are the some of the facts about these people who are actually hurt. Okay? The number one fact is that there are many hurting people. Studies have shown that 1 out of 3 people are hurting nowadays. So can you imagine 1 out of 3 people are hurting? Which means that if you have like 2 other siblings and your sister seems okay and your other brother seems okay, then probably it's you who is hurting. 1 out of 3. The statistics is huge, and there are many hurting people nowadays. We can see that by their Facebook posts, right? There are so many people who are hurting. With that fact being given to us, this is another fact. Those hurting people often hurt others. It says here that hurting people tend to overreact, over exaggerate, and overprotect. They tend to be very controlling. Now, in the book of John Maxwell, he states that those people who are carrying pain within them are actually the ones who hurt others as well. So, do you know a person who tends to overreact or over exaggerate or is super duper protective? If you know that someone like that, then probably this person is hurting. Or are you like that? Do you have angry outbursts? Or do you overreact with simple matters like, very basic things, and yet your temper just flares up? Then is it possible that you're actually carrying some wounds or some pain within you? The third fact is that those hurting people are easily hurt by others. If you're hurting, you just don't hurt other people. You're also easily hurt by other people. This is known as the splinter principle. Have you ever had an ingrown? For females, probably you have experienced this before, especially now that the parlors are shut, and some of those that are considered as luxury are not yet open in malls. So probably some of you do not, have your nail expert, okay, around, and because of that, you have this ingrown. If you ever had that ingrown, I want you to imagine that that ingrown is so deep, and yet you have to like go to work, so you have to put on the shoes. And I want you to imagine that the shoes that you're fitting on is that stiletto type of shoe, wherein your feet has to be like this, Can you imagine? And your heels is like tall. I want you to imagine that. And then as you are walking, towards your work, one of your co-teacher, saw you and said hi, and accidentally stepped on your foot with the ingrown. Can you imagine your reaction? Your reaction would probably an angry outburst. Why are you not looking? My foot, it hurts. And when you get so angry, probably you shout at your co-teacher, and your co-teacher who just greeted you hi and accidentally stepped on your foot was shocked as to your reaction. So she would probably say, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to step on your foot. It was unintentional." But they can go their separate ways without knowing the real reason behind the reaction. It's not about the stepping on the foot. It's all about the ingrown. So sometimes, so what's the lesson there? Sometimes when we see a person overreact, and that reaction is, it's superlative, a superlative reaction over something seemingly trivial, maybe this person has an ingrown. You probably know a lot of people with ingrowns, right? And sometimes we have ingrowns as well. There are subjects that are too touchy to speak of. This is called the splinter principle. If you're in pain, you tend to overreact and you are easily hurt by other people. And then the fourth one is this truth. Hurting people often hurt themselves before they even hurt others, before they even feel hurt by others. If you're in pain, if you're hurting, I don't know where this comes from, but there is this tendency for us to hurt ourselves even more. Have you experienced that? For example, a guy turned down by the one he courts. What will he do? He will go to the bottle and drink and probably destroy his liver in the process. But he doesn't care. But the one he courted and who turned him down doesn't even know that he's like, doing this to himself. But, you know, we tend to hurt ourselves. I know of some young people who would go for counseling and they will tell me that when their boyfriend left them, they wanted to kill themselves. And to me, it was just, where is this coming from? And then I'm going to ask her, how long have you been together? Because this is so drastic. You wanting to kill yourself. And she would tell me it's been about 2. So I said, 2 years? And she said, 2 months. 2 months! And you will kill yourself. But this is the truth that sometimes we see when we observe or learn about people. Hurting people hurt themselves. It's like, the logic seems to turn off and you just, go on and let your emotions lead you. Hurting people hurt themselves. Do you know that if only people would choose to apologize, choose being the key word there, many relationships will be reconciled? Can you imagine your past relationships, your broken relationships, your toxic relationships? What if one of you tried to humble himself or herself and apologize? Maybe the outcome will not be the same. And probably you are still on that process right now. You have this relationship and it's nearing its brokenness. Maybe it just takes an apology from one of the people in the relationship to make the relationship work. But the question here is, are you prepared to work through your issues and get beyond your pain? Because the truth of the matter is, many of us are wounded. Many of us are walking around with social distancing, of course, with masks on, both literal and figurative. And we are hurting. And this is a world filled with people in pain. Now, the question here is, are you willing to work through the pain? Because there are no shortcuts to healing the hurt that you have. You have to be willing to get through that painful process of debridement, or a way in which the doctor will clean the wound. So that the new cells will have a chance to survive, to form new ones, You have to clean the dead cells, the wound. You have to clean the wound, remove those dirt, remove those, I don't know what else is there, bacteria, and you have to clean it. And the process of cleaning is never pleasant, but it's vital so that healing can begin. So are you ready? Now, this wound healing process will not take place in this webinar. We have another webinar that talks about wounds, both emotional wounds and primal wounds and invisible wounds. And we'll talk about that on another webinar. But this time, we will go through the first process, and that is apology. The process of apologizing. If you're here and you're asking, Mom Sherry, why do I need to apologize? Well, Gary Chapman says if we live in a perfect world, apologizing is no longer necessary. However, because this is an imperfect world and we are imperfect human beings trying to build relationship with other imperfect human beings, then apologizing is a necessity. Let's first define what an apology is. An apology is an acknowledgement of some fault, injury, insult, with an expression of regret and a plea for pardon. I guess this dictionary definition actually encompasses all of the language that we want to teach you. So it's an acknowledgement of some fault, injury, insult, with an expression of regret and a plea for pardon. That is what an apology is. Now, if you know this film, then probably you are older than me. So this is a film, I think it's in the 60s or 70s, I'm not sure, but it's entitled Love Story. And the famous line that they have there says, love means never having to say you're sorry. Now, this is understandable because this is a Hollywood movie. Okay, because in films, everything seems to be ideal, in most films. So in an ideal world, you don't need to say you're sorry. But in an imperfect world, here in our reality, I know that if you have a husband or a wife, or you're in a relationship, or if you have siblings, or best friends, you know that for any long-term relationship to be even possible, you need to apologize. It's actually a cycle of saying you're sorry, or apologizing, and then forgiving, right? It's a cycle of sorry and I forgive you. It's a constant cycle of forgiving one another and bearing with one another. So it says here, without apology and forgiveness, a long-term relationship is neither healthy nor possible, because it's necessary. So if you are in a relationship right now, can you still count the number of times that you apologize and forgave your partner? Can you write it down on the comment section below? So most of you probably will say infinite. Now, in the Bible, in Colossians, Apostle Paul actually said you have to forgive one another. It says here, so as those who have been chosen of God, holy and beloved, put on a heart of compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience, bearing with one another and forgiving each other, whoever has a complaint against anyone. Just as the Lord forgave you, so also should you. This is a very tall order for us to actually bear with one another, In our Filipino vernacular, we say bearing with one another as magtiisan kayo. You know, I don't know why it's quite difficult, to actually bear with other people's mistakes or for other people's shortcomings. But this is a command from the Bible that we should bear with one another and forgive each other. And look at the metaphor here, just as the Lord, simile, just as the Lord forgave you, so also should you. So that in that aspect, as the Lord has forgiven us, so should we. Okay. So if that is already a command, apologizing is a command to us, and it's also something that can reconcile broken relationships. So the question that remains is, why don't people apologize? If it will reconcile people, why don't we apologize? So here are three reasons why people don't apologize despite of the benefits of apologizing. Number one, it's not worth the effort. One of the reasons why people do not apologize is because they think very low of the relationship, that it seems to them that they can actually do without the other person. So if that's how you view your relationship, then you will not make the effort of apologizing or trying to reconcile it. So probably there is no love there in the first place. The second reason, and I think this is the number one reason why people do not apologize. Even kids give this as an excuse. It's not my fault. Have you ever used that excuse before? I remember when I was young and growing up, um, I have a sibling, I have a sister, younger sister, and a younger brother. And whenever we fight, there's always this concept of who began the fight, who who took the crayons first, okay, who broke what first, so this is something that we often use as an excuse for not apologizing. Like, it's not my fault, he was the one who raised his voice, he so it's easy to point to people, to blame others and not take responsibility. So if you think that it's not your fault, there's a tendency for you not to apologize. Okay. Another reason why people do not apologize is they say, I'm not weak. Because for them, to apologize is to admit defeat, right? If it's an argument, if whoever apologizes first is the weakling. However, in my experience as a counselor to young people and also to some parents, usually the stronger person is the one who apologizes first, because it takes strength to be humble. It takes strength to admit your faults. It takes strength to admit that you made a mistake and you're not perfect. And that's the reason why I believe that apologizing, whoever does the apology, is not the weak person. It takes a lot of strength to actually do that. That's also the reason why people who have been, uh, avoiding each other for the longest time, even in our workplace, there are these people, right? They just, see each other, and because of an argument few years back, they are not speaking to each other anymore. They often see each other's mistakes, and the and no one wants to be the first one to apologize. But can you imagine? Can you imagine what would happen if one of these people will muster up the strength to just stand up, go to the other side, and say, Ma'am, I know it's been a long time coming, but I apologize for whatever hurt or what hurtful words I said to you in the past. I hope that we can be friends again. And can you imagine what strength it would take? It would take courage. Why? Because when you do that, you're facing the possibility of rejection. And I believe that only people who are strong can have that ability to face rejection right on. And if you're this person whom I'm talking about, there is this person in your life right now who, who hurt you or whom you've hurt each other for the longest time, and you're not speaking to one another. Maybe you can take this opportunity or after this webinar to send a message from what you've learned here that apologizes to that person. I hope that you will have that courage to do that, to apply this. These are the three major reasons why people do not apologize. However, the truth remains that apologizing is a choice. It's up to you, really. It's up to you if you just want whatever this fight. You cannot even remember. Sometimes it's like that with us Filipinos, right? You cannot even remember what the original reason was why you and their family fought. For example, your neighbor, you're fighting with your neighbor because of all these gossips. You don't even know where it started. Why you just hate that neighbor, or why this neighbor just hates you. Maybe there is a need for apologizing. Maybe, you can bake something and give it to that neighbor, and probably you will be reconciled. Remember, apologizing is a choice, and only the strong can do it. Now, if you're faced with this problem, so probably you will say, Mom Cherry, I already apologized. I even mustered the courage. I went to this person and I said, I'm sorry. However, she is the one who doesn't want to forgive me. What is the problem? Well, it could be that she's not ready, or the person that you hurt is still hurt, though they are not ready to receive your apology. Or it could be that there's something wrong with the apology. Maybe you are not speaking their language, or maybe it lacks certain ingredients for the apology to be actually effective. For example, this is one apology that you can see that probably lacks something very important when it comes to apologies. The person said, I'm sorry if you're offended. I don't think I said anything offensive. What does this lack? It lacks the key thing when we talk about apology, and that is sincerity. There are 5 languages of apologies according to a psychologist, Dr. Gary Chapman. He is also the one who wrote the book on the 5 love languages, if you're familiar with his writing. Now, this is the lesser popular, I think, lesser popular of the two. So the love languages are actually popular. I see it explained on the internet. But the languages of apology is not as popular as the languages of love. Now, if your problem has something to do with you not being able to get through to another person, the person you've hurt, or the person who is hurting, and you're trying to apologize, and yet you cannot get through, you have to check on this key. Are you sincere? Now, sincerity it's the key that will open the door for reconciliation, because people can see through us, right? We have that we have that somehow ability to see through a person's words if the person is actually just saying those words but not really meaning those words. And sometimes when you say you mean it still doesn't, resonate with with this person. Probably the problem that you're having is you're not on the same wavelength, or you're not speaking the same language. So can you imagine, for example, we have guests here from different parts of the world. So let's say, for example, someone on the chat box just, type in a question from their own dialect or from their own language. Well, even if I see that, I will not understand that because I do not speak their language. So you have to. So the goal of this webinar is actually for you to be able to speak the different languages of apology, so that the next time you apologize, you can be multilingual. So we will teach you how to be a linguist in terms of apology. Okay? So I hope you're as excited as I am, because I'm so excited that you're here right now. You are learning with us, which tells me that you are someone who does not just, want to uh, leave this earth without maximizing everything. You just want to make an impact in your relationships, make an impact in your workplace. And if you're that person, then knowing how to apologize is one way that can improve your relationships. Okay, so let's get started. So if you're here right now, I hope that you have finished answering the test that we have. So I actually gave you a test, and you will find it on the link that you can see below in our description box. So this is the apology test that you should answer, and then you have to count the total scores at the end, and then you will know your primary and secondary language of apology, the ones that you actually speak and you want to hear from other people. Okay? So sometimes the one that we want to hear from others is actually the one that we are already speaking. But sometimes, as I've told you, it does not resonate to the person you're talking to because that person has a different language. Okay, so let's talk about these different languages one at a time. After we speak of this language, we will go into detail on how to, or we will go into practice of how to actually speak that language. Practice time, we will have that. And then we will, at the end, we will group them all together and try it out all at the same time. Okay? So I hope you're ready, because I know I am. Okay, let's get to it. Okay, so let us now begin with our first language, expressing regret. So when we speak of expressing regret, most people who had the highest score on this is actually those people who wants to hear the magic words, I am sorry. So let me repeat to you, expressing regret, I am sorry. People who has this language, or who wants to hear this language, are those people who are focused on the emotional side of apologizing. They want to hear you actually express emotionally that you are feeling what they have felt when you hurt them. So if this is you, you want to feel that the offender actually felt remorse about what he or she did. Okay? So you want them to empathize with your hurt. That's why you want them to express regret. So the key word there is empathy. So if you're trying to apologize to someone with this language, your major concern is letting them know that you feel what they feel. Okay, so because empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another, you are trying to show them that I feel you. Okay, I feel what you're going through. I know that I've hurt you. So these are the words that they want to hear, especially the magic words, I am sorry. So let me give you some tips on how to express regret. Number one, be sincere. Remember that, as I've told you, sincerity is the key that will open the door to reconciliation and apology. Therefore, you have to be sincere. This is true for all of the languages. Secondly, say the magic words sorry. You have to say, I am sorry. Sometimes when me and my husband, we have some arguments, I thought to myself, well, I will tell him, okay, it's my fault. I did it. I hurt you. That's it. I will miss out on the word sorry. So that's the time that I will see him still mad at me. So I asked him, why are you still mad at me? I already apologized. And he told me, no, you did not apologize because you did not say sorry. So for some people with this language, they are waiting for you to say the magic words sorry. So you have to include that in your apology. Thirdly, is to make sure that your body language is congruent with what you're saying. What are we saying here? They are looking to the emotional side of apologizing. So it means that you have to be apologetic even with your body language, because sometimes people will apologize to you but their actions scream that they really don't mean what they're saying, or they are sarcastic with their sorries. So if that's the case, then it will not work. Another is you have to explain the reason behind the apology. Sometimes people just apologize for the sake of, getting this argument over. However, for people who wants to hear you express regret, they want to hear you say why you are actually apologizing. What's the reason behind it? So let me give you some statements that you can actually say to people with this language, okay? So that you can express regret. So this is a statement that you can say, I know that I have hurt you deeply with what I have said earlier. Sorry for being insensitive to your feelings. As you can see, you have actually empathized with their hurt. You recognize that they were hurt by your words, so you gave a reason for the apology, and you're also saying sorry because you were insensitive to their feelings. So you're trying to be remorseful, or you are being remorseful. So you have to be sincere about this. So if you truly hurt somebody with your words, you can say these words to somehow appease their hurt or their pain. Another of this example will be this one. I feel so bad that you are now suffering from what I did. I should have considered that showing up late would make you feel unimportant. Sorry, dear. Why are women so conscious about dates, or they want you to show up early or show up on time, or they want you not to forget your anniversary or their birthday or something important? The reason for that is because of this. When you forget them, when you forget your appointment with them, they feel that they're not important. For example, something came up. Like your friend came from the States and you just forgot all about the dinner that you planned together. So it tells them that they're not important. And that is the feeling that is so painful. It's not about the dress, or it's not about the reservation that they made in the restaurant. No, it's not about that. It's all about the feeling of not being the priority. So you have to remember the dates. But if you forgot, so you can express these words. Okay, so that can help you when you apologize. Another is, I am sorry for my actions towards you yesterday. I hurt you and I regret it as soon as I did it. So as you can see, there is this emotional portion of the apology that says why you are actually apologizing, because you are acknowledging the hurt and you are being remorseful that you actually caused the pain that this person is experiencing. Okay, so I hope that you now know how to speak the language of expressing regret. Okay, remember the keywords here is I am sorry. So it is practice time now. So I will give you some time to practice these exact words. So you will say, I am sorry to somebody. You will say you regret it. You'll be remorseful. So you can act this out. If you are watching with somebody, you can use that person with a loved one. You can use that person to act it out, to practice how to apologize. Okay, so I'm going to give you some time to practice saying sorry with expressing regret. Okay, so I want you to imagine that you forgot your anniversary and you're just coming in from, let's say, a long meeting at work. So I want you to apologize to your loved one right now. You forgot your anniversary date. Okay, so timer starts now. Okay, I hope you joined us with that practice time. Now we will talk about the second language of apology, and that is accepting responsibility. Now, the first one, again, is what? Expressing regret, and the magic words, I am sorry. Now, this time, your language or magic words will be, it's my fault. Now, it's my fault or accepting responsibility is the language that this language calls for the offender to admit his mistake and accept responsibility for his actions. Now, for some people who speak this language, even though the other person already said the word sorry, to them it does not resonate unless they admit that it is actually their fault why the argument happened, or why there was a fight. So you have to admit it's your fault. Okay, now sometimes this becomes a problem because as human beings we have what we call our ego. So our ego is sometimes protected by defense mechanisms, which means that we don't want to accept faults, right? We don't want to accept mistakes. So we have the tendency to blame others, blame other people, blame the situation instead of really taking the responsibility for ourselves, for our mistakes. So when that happens, you will have a problem with people speaking this language because they want you to say it's your fault. The reason why it's hard for us to admit that it's our fault is because probably it was ingrained to us when we were young. When you were a child, you were overly punished or shamed for simple offenses by a strict parent or a strict grandparent. You somehow formed this subconscious thought that if I admit it's my fault, it will lead to low self-esteem or low self-worth. Because when I was young, when I made a mistake, I was shamed. So that's now your view of mistakes. So there's a tendency for you to be hesitant with making decisions, to not to admit even if it's actually your fault. To admit I'm wrong is to be bad. That's the wrong notion. That's why we tend to pass the responsibility on to other people. We don't want to admit it is our fault. We think of ourselves as perfect. This is why it's so difficult to accept responsibility. However, that will be a problem if the person you offended has this language because they want you to accept the responsibility. If you say sorry and then blame it on others, the apology will be useless. They will not forgive you. So instead of blaming others, you will say it is your fault. And the good thing about this is once you admit the mistake, you will see the other person who speaks this language will somehow also have a self-reflection and also admit that they made a mistake as well. Okay, so I guess that's the tendency. So for example, I am a person who speaks this language. This is my language of apology, accepting responsibility. So when my husband, is apologizing to me, he says sorry. So I'm not satisfied. So I want him to admit it's his fault. So sometimes I'm, continuing the argument despite of the fact that he already said sorry. So he will just say, then he will probably remember about this workshop and he will say, okay, it's my fault. I made a mistake. I should not have said that. It made you feel it made you feel worthless. So when he said that, I will also reflect on my mistake and say that no, it's not just your fault. I'm also at fault because when you said those words to me, I was hurt and I lashed out at you with, more hurtful words. So as you can see, there is reconciliation if both parties actually accepted responsibility. Now, these are some words that you can use when you are talking to someone with this language. Okay, first is, I know that what I did was wrong. I could try to excuse myself, but there is no excuse. Pure and simple, what I did was selfish and wrong. So that is just, plainly accepting the blame. And when you do that, this person that you have offended will say, "Oh, he's man enough to actually admit that he made a mistake." So if that's the case, then they will probably, accept your apology. Another example is, I made a big mistake. At the time, I didn't think much about what I was doing, but in retrospect, I guess that's the problem. I wish I had thought before I acted. What I did was wrong. So it's like me, I'm to blame. And when you do this, as I told you, there is a tendency for the other person to say, "No, it's not all your fault. I also had a part to play on that, on what happened." This is again, I repeated a mistake that we've discussed before. I really messed up. I know that it was my fault. So these are the words that you can say. Now, if we're talking about being multilingual here, we want to have, or we want to speak multiple language. So you have to combine the two languages because you don't know. For example, you offended somebody. You don't know their language. You will not tell them, "Can you please take this test so that I know how to apologize to you?" So you will not do that, right? So what you will do is you try to speak all the language all at the same time so that when you encounter somebody, whatever their language is, you will be able somehow to tap into that language by speaking all the languages. So now in our exercise, our practice time, we will combine the first two languages. Remember the first one, expressing regret, and the magic words are "I am sorry." Second one, we just discussed it, accepting responsibility. The magic words are "it's my fault." Now, what I want you to do is to combine these two words when you apologize. So this will be your practice time. You apologize to your sibling because you used their favorite bag. Okay, they used their favorite bag and it's now ruined. Okay, so you spilled something on it, it's ruined, you used it. You will apologize using the first two. Okay, first two languages. Okay, so ready, go. Okay, thank you for participating on that practice time. Now let's go to our third language. Now, the third apology language is called making restitution. So, what are the magic words? What is restitution? If this is the first time you've heard of this, then you will know its definition. The magic words for this language is, what can I do to make it right? Again, what can I do to make it right? The idea of reparative damage is based on our innate human sense that when a wrong has been committed, it should be paid for. If something did something wrong, somebody has to pay. And that is it's our sense of justice, right? So innate to humans that when something is, when there are injustices around us, we just want to shout, "Make it right, make it right." And this is that language, that apology language. You want the other person to somehow make things right with you. Let me give you a specific example where you want to speak this language, making restitution. For example, you are driving. Okay, so let's do here now. You are practicing driving with a student license. Okay, with a student license, you're practicing driving. And there was your neighbor's car sitting there, not doing anything. And as you pass by, your side mirror scratch the body of the car of your neighbor. Okay, so you stopped, of course, as any responsible student driver would do, and you went to your neighbor and said that you will apologize because you did something. Imagine the scenario that you will use the first two apology. So when you see your neighbor, you will say, "Ma'am, it's my fault. I am so sorry. I was driving at and I was trying to learn how to drive, and then my side mirror scratched the body of your car. So I'm so sorry. Um, I know you're hurt. I apologize. Goodbye." Will that work? Will it work? Of course not. It will not work. Why? Because the car was damaged. And because it's damaged, it has to be repaired. You have to shoulder the cost. And that is what restitution is all about. Restitution is the act of giving something as an equivalent to what has been lost or damaged. Let's say, for example, you damaged it, so you probably ask, do you have like insurance, or what are the participation fees that I have to pay to get this corrected? So that is the reason behind your making restitution. So technically, making restitution is doing some amends or making amends for what was done. So if you hurt somebody, so you're trying to make amends or try to undo what was done. For example, for children, you see that children do this, right? For example, they did something wrong, and then in our vernacular, we say pagod shot, right? So you want your parents to think, that, you're trying to do some amends. For example, you came in late last night, and, you need to try to do some amends. You did the laundry, or, so this is some form of what can I do to make it right? Trying to mend what was hurt. Okay? So, the reason behind why we should do restitutions is because for people who were hurt by our actions or words, they have this lingering thought, how can they love me and still do that to me? That is the lingering thought that they have in their minds. So they question the love that we have for them. It says here, publicly, the emphasis of restitution is the sense of justice. In the private sphere of family and close relationships, restitution is based on our need for love. So they are now questioning, after being hurt, we need the reassurance that the person who hurt us still loves us. And sometimes we need this reassurance by the actions that they do after they have hurt us. So I remember before, when we talk about undoing, it comes in different ways, or when we talk about making restitution. And it's good for us to know, or for us to ask the person, what can I do to make it right? Because if you're the one who's like trying to make amends, but that's not what the other person expects of you, then there will be a disconnect in the language of making restitution. The harsh words or hurtful actions that, as I've said, we do to people we love hurt them and calls into question our love for them. So sometimes when we do things that are, hurtful to the person that we love, and it pays for us to actually ask them, what can I do to make it right? Because sometimes we do a lot of things. For example, when my husband and I had an argument, I tried to win him back, or I tried to undo what I did by cooking his favorite, dish, or even washing the dishes, or cleaning the house, or doing those stuff, even buying him a jacket. And then after doing all those things, I look at him and I still feel that something is not right still. So that's the time that I go ask him, what can I do to make this right? Is there anything that I can do to make you feel less hurt. And then he told me, embrace me. So that's the only thing that he wants, for me to actually hug him. And that would be okay. But I did all those things first because I did not go to him and ask him what he wants or what he needs from me to reassure him that I actually love him. So this is the reason why apologies work in our relationships, in our close relationships, because there is the basic um thing that binds us, which is our love for each other. That's why apologies and forgiveness works in our relationships. So what are the statements of restitutions? The first is there anything I can do to make up for what I have done? So that those are some things that you can say. Another, I know I have hurt you deeply and I feel I should do something to repay you for the hurt I've caused. Can you give me a suggestion? Another is, I regret that I've damaged your honor. May I make a public apology? So, doing public apology is a way of making restitution, because when you do public apology, it shows humility on your part, and it shows that you're trying to make things right by setting things straight. You know, because sometimes public apology is necessary when you wronged a person, and for example he was shamed in public, or and you need to make it right by also coming clean to the public of what you've done, and you're trying to make amends for it. Okay, so these are the words of making restitution. Okay, so let's have a recap or a review of what the first three languages. The first one is your the first language. What is it? Okay, it's your expressing regret, and your magic words are I am sorry. Second one, accepting responsibility. It's my fault. Those are your magic words. Third one, making restitution. What can I do to make it right? The fourth one is known as genuinely repenting. When we talk about genuinely repenting, it's if you know the word repent. So the key words here is I'll try not to do that again. Have you ever had that person who makes the same mistakes over and over again, and tries to keep on repeating the same mistakes? You've already talked to that person, and then so these are the words that you want to finally hear from that person. I'll try not to do that again, and that's called genuinely repenting. To repent means to turn around or to change one's mind. So for example, you're going on the right side, going to, let's say, alcoholism. So repent means to turn around from alcoholism and go to the other side, okay, of being sober. So when a person repents, means they change their mind. They are convinced, they have decided that they will not do the hurtful thing, or they will not say the hurtful words again. Okay, so it entails realizing that the behavior is destructive and choosing to change for the better. Let me give you an example of what I did or I had before. Now I'm not there yet, no, but these are the changes that I actually made. So one of the weaknesses that my personality has is having this angry outburst. It's like when I'm angry, it's from 0 to 10. It's like boom. It's an instant explosion. And sometimes when I was younger, I was not able to control that anger. It shows and it hurts when it explodes. It hurts people around me. It hurts people that I love. And I wanted to change that behavior. So the first thing that I do is I made a plan, expressing my intent to change. So I told my loved one that I will try not to shout or scream at you when I'm angry. I will try. So that is my first step, to express that intention. The second step is to have a plan. Of course, some people will prefer not to say the words that I'll try not to do it again, because they have this mentality. Just make the change, don't talk about them mentality, which means that I'm not gonna just say it, I'm just gonna do it. I'm not gonna promise, I'm just gonna do it. But if you don't promise, you are not making yourself accountable to your words and to the people around you who are hearing those words. But if you make a promise to try not to do the things that you're doing again, it makes you accountable to your words. Because if you do it again, it's like you're eating your own words. So it makes you more accountable. I hope that you get what I'm trying to say here. Now, the problem is that this is another problem if you don't say the plans or the decisions that you're making. The person that you have offended cannot read your mind, which means that he or she doesn't know that you actually truly decided to change. So if they don't know, how can they start to forgive you? Because you're not even, trying to change, even with just saying it. So the second, it doesn't stop by just saying that you will try not to change or you will try to change. But the second step is actually having the plan for implementing the change. What are the steps that you're going to do to actually prevent you from repeating the same destructive behavior? For example, we're talking about alcoholism. So if you're an alcoholic, what can you do to prevent or to no longer, be an alcoholic? Are you going to go to rehab? Are you, going to remove all alcohol in your home and all your stash? Just throw them away. What are you going to do? So there should be a laid out plan. When I was trying to change my angry outbursts, what I planned to do was to actually, when I feel angry, what I do is I do not engage. So when I feel that anger, I will try my best to stop speaking. I will intentionally stop myself from speaking and go to the other room. Just, to breathe, to give space so that I'm not at a 10 again. So I'm just, going to try to calm myself down. And when I'm cooled down, that's the time that I'm going to go back to the room and, engage or speak or present my argument if there is a need to do that. So that is now a plan. And that plan should also be verbalized to the people whom you've hurt so that they know that you're trying your best to actually prevent these things from recurring. Remember, sometimes when we make mistakes, for example, we fail a subject or we are not able to finish something that we've started, and our parents are nagging on us. This is the only thing that they need from us to be able to get off our backs. Is that for us to say that, Mom, I will try my best, not to fail at this again. These are my plans. I plan to, for this semester, I plan to have like a study habit. I'm gonna do some advanced reading. I'm especially weak on this part of, this portion of my classes, and I plan to have a study group to help me through this class because I'm poor at math or something like that. So if you have developed a plan like that, and your parents know already that you are doing something, they cannot read your mind. They are not saying, "Oh, my daughter is now actually trying to improve herself." Remember that your parents, if you're here right now and you're like a student, your parents are nagging on you to improve your study habits, your finish your schooling, to be more disciplined because they love you. That is the bottom line. The reason why they're nagging on you is because they want you to be the best version of you, and they see some of your potential being lost because of your bad habits, and because of that, you need to take some action for yourself. And you just need to reassure them that you are having some changes. You are trying not to fail again. If you did fail a class or a subject or a course, you'll try not to shift again if you're shifting a lot of courses. So, these are some things that you can do and say to your parents so that they will no longer nag on you. Okay? and there will be peace in the world and in the home. The third step will be to implement the plan. Of course, you did, you said it, you planned it, now you implement it. You put it into action. Okay, the plan that you have made. Okay, so that the people around you are actually saying, oh, she's trying to change. She's really, doing her best to actually stay true to the promise that she had made. It's like a song. So the another problem why people do not speak this language of genuinely repenting, they're not saying, I'll try not to do it again, because they're afraid that they will fail. So if this is something that you're afraid of, remember the word try. I'll try not to do this again. Now this word is not something that gives you license to fail, but this gives you a leeway, or what do you call this? It gives you some form of freedom that when you somehow slip, for example, I try, to wake up early every morning, mom, so that I'll be more self-disciplined. And then one day, one night, you just, you stayed up late and then you overslept in the morning. So you failed. You had a misstep. So, but still, you can try again. That's the reason why we put the try, that I'll try not to do it again. Because it gives you hope that there is another go at it. Okay, you can start over again. Okay. Except for that movie, they did not. So I'm not going to spoil it. Okay, so these are the statements of genuine repenting. Okay, so how are you gonna speak this language to the person you have offended? So let me give you an example. I know that my behavior was very painful to you. I don't ever want to do that again. I'm open to any ideas you have on how I might change my behavior. Now, this is good. Why? Because when you ask this of the person, for example, your mom is nagging on you on your, let's say, thesis, you're not yet done with it. So, what you can do is, Mom, I'm trying, I know that my being delayed in school hurt you. I'm trying my best, and I'll try to pass this semester. Can you can you help me or give me some tips on how I can do that? Because now it becomes your plan with your parents' plan to actually, get you to that goal that you both have. Okay, so these are some things that you can say. Another is, I know that what I'm doing is not helpful. What would you like to see me change that would make this better for you? Sometimes, when we make mistakes and it's like, it's the same mistake over and over, the people who keeps on forgiving us, they keep on forgiving us. It's like an unlimited number of forgiveness points. And for me, this can only happen because the people around us actually love us. They love us enough to be bothered by when our behavior is not right. And that's the reason why it pays for us to actually ask them, what what do you want me to change? Is there anything about me that you want me to change so that I can, so that I can be better, be a better version of myself? So that is now the genuine repenting. Okay, so I hope that you still recall the first four that we spoke of before we go to the last. So remember, the first one is expressing regret, magic words, I am sorry. The second one is accepting responsibility, magic words, it's my fault. The third one is making restitution, magic words, what can I do to make it right? The fourth one, genuinely repenting, your magic words are, I'll try not to do that again. Okay, so if you combine all those things, when you apologize to to the people that you've hurt, okay, together with the fifth one, it gives you a lot of opportunity that your apology will resonate with them, and it opens a door for forgiveness for reconciliation. Okay, so let's now go to the fifth language. Okay, so we're done. Our last language, our fifth language, is requesting forgiveness. Requesting forgiveness. Now, there are not a lot of people who have this or speaks this language when they apologize. The magic words here are, will you please forgive me? Will you please forgive me? Requesting forgiveness indicates that you want to see the relationship fully restored. So this is the reason why you're asking, will you please forgive me? It shows that you realize you have done something wrong, be it intentional or not. It shows that you're willing to put the future of the relationship in the hands of the offended person. This is the reason why people do not usually use or include this language when they apologize, is because it's like putting the ball on the person's court. It's like, you have all the power here. Will you please forgive me? If you say those words, there is a danger for the person who was hurt to say no. And because of that danger, many people will not even, try to speak this language, but you have to. What are we afraid of? Why is it difficult to say, will you please forgive me? Number one, we have this fear of losing control. Many of us are control freaks. We want to control our relationships. We don't want them, going or straying far from us. We want to micromanage whatever they're doing at every given moment. And sometimes we're so afraid of losing control that even in our apologies, we don't even give that person a chance to actually forgive us. Because we're not asking them, will you please forgive me? So we are afraid to give them the control over the relationship. Another is our fear of rejection. What if the person says no? So we are afraid to be rejected. Another is the fear of failure. Because sometimes, of course, when people fail with their relationship, for example, the person says, no, I don't want to be reconciled with you. I don't want to go on with this relationship anymore. Then that will lead to us feeling that we are a failure because, we cannot sustain the relationship. So it's very important that when you speak to people, this is a pro tip for you. When you are trying to apologize, you have to make a request. Never demand for the forgiveness of the person. I remember sometimes I'm counseling couples and they will just say that the man will say that, Ma'am Cherry, my girlfriend, she's so always tense and all that. She's making a big deal out of a small thing. Like, for example, I already said I'm sorry, but she does not want to forgive me. So therein lies the problem. Because if you are demanding forgiveness, like, for example, I already said I'm sorry, so we're okay? We're okay. So you cannot demand that from the other person, because as you know, depending on the hurt, it takes some time for us to forgive. When we demand forgiveness, we do not understand what forgiveness is all about. Forgiveness is essentially a choice to remove the penalty of the hurt or the person inflicted upon you, and let the offender back into your life. Sometimes, if that's how we view forgiveness, then it means that it cannot be demanded. Some people forgive faster than others. Some people need some time away from you for them to be able to come to terms with their feelings, with their hurts, and then they will forgive you. So you just don't demand it from other people. What are the statements of requesting forgiveness? So let me give you some sample. This one is, I'm sorry for the way I spoke to you. You did not deserve that. It was very wrong of me, and I want to ask you to forgive me. So can you forgive me? So this is, heartfelt. I know that what I did hurt you very deeply. I hope you can find it in your heart to forgive me. And then another, I did something very wrong. I will try not to do that again. I know it would take time for you to forgive me. I will patiently wait for you. And if you hear this and this is your language, you might think, no, this person is really willing to make things work because they are even willing to give me the time and space that I need to think about what happened and how we can move on from it. Okay, so these are the statements of requesting forgiveness. Now, those are the 5 languages of apology. We've learned the first one, which is expressing regret. I am sorry. The second one is accepting responsibility, saying it's my fault. The third one is making restitution, saying, what can I do to make things right or to make it right? Fourth one is you're genuinely repenting. It's saying, I'll try not to do that again. The fifth one is requesting forgiveness, saying, will you please forgive me? And if you combine these 5 in your apology, I know that it will actually help the other person or somehow open the door for forgiveness to happen and for reconciliation. Now, during this portion of our workshop, because this is a workshop, okay? So what I want you to do is to write an apology letter, okay? So on a piece of paper, I want you to write an apology letter. You're probably thinking, to whom? I want you to write an apology letter to yourself, to your child self. Dear young Cherry. So, if your name is Anna, dear young Anna. So, I want you to write to your younger self, okay? And if there are bad decisions that you made, or probably you lost your joy, or you lost your awe of life, or probably you just, you're no longer enthusiastic, you're no longer passionate. I want you to think back when you were young, when you have all those dreams, when you have all those goals. And I want you to apologize to yourself, okay? So that's the first part. I'm gonna play a music as a background to this. And then after the music is played, after you've written down your letter, we will proceed to our next activity. So we will proceed to our next activity. So I hope that you will do this exercise with us so that you can do your workshop. I want you to write a heartfelt letter to your young self. If, whatever life or journey that you had made, I don't know how bumpy that journey was. I don't know how painful that journey was. But I want you to write to your young self, and I want you to apologize. If there's anything that you need to apologize for, just say sorry to your young self. I'm giving you the time. I hope that you've written your letters to your young self, because this next part will only work if you did the first part of the activity. So the second part of the activity is, I know that I've told you that apologizing is a choice, but forgiveness is also a choice. So using your non-dominant hand, which means that if you're writing with your right hand right now or earlier, you will use your left hand. So if you're writing with your left hand, you will use your right hand. Just use your non-dominant hand. So using your non-dominant hand, get a piece of paper, and I want you to write as your young self to your older self. So, dear Cherry. So remember earlier, I said, dear young Cherry. Now, your young self will now reply to your older self. And I want you, in that letter, to forgive yourself. I know this is difficult, especially if you made some mistakes. If you've gone through some dark times in your life, I know it's difficult to forgive ourselves. But what I want you to do is to release yourself from all those baggages. Because probably those are the things that are weighing you down from achieving your full potential. So can you please forgive yourself for not trying? Forgive yourself for indulging? Forgive yourself for a weakness? Forgive yourself for feeling disappointed or being a disappointment? Just I want you to forgive yourself and release yourself with this letter. I'll give you some time to do that. If you have finished our activity of first writing to your young self and secondly replying to forgive yourself right now, I hope that this served as some form of release for you, especially during this time that we need less people hurting. And what we are as a channel, as humans, we want to help each other to look at life with new eyes. And I hope that as you forgive yourself, you're releasing yourself and allowing yourself to realize that it's not yet the end, that those mistakes gave you learnings that you cannot get elsewhere, and that you are not a failure. Let me pause for a short prayer so that I can pray for you. Let us pray. Father in heaven, we are grateful for this time and opportunity that you've given us to be able to learn about languages of apology and to also see where we are right now. Father, I pray for people who are hurting, people who are in pain, people who are blaming themselves, Lord God. Father, if there are anyone hurting during this moment, listening to this prayer, may you please use others to encourage them. May you please use this webinar to somehow remind them that it is not the end, that they are loved, that there are people around them who they can count on, who are precious because they are willing to encourage them during these tough times. They did not leave them. I pray, Lord God, that you will allow families to be reconciled. I pray, Lord God, that you will allow relationships to mend with apologies and forgiveness. We thank you, Father, for allowing us to see that forgiveness and apology is a choice, and it's a command by you, and that you have forgiven us so that we can forgive others as well. Thank you for your love. Thank you for your embrace. And I pray that for the hurting people, I pray for the release as they forgive themselves tonight. This you ask and pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you so much for being with us on this webinar. We appreciate you. If you have questions, if you want to share your story, you can do so. You can go to our page and you can PM us with your personal story, or you can just tell your story to us in the description box. Comment your story. We will try to get to you. If you need some counseling, you can come to me on my page and we can set up a schedule for counseling. So my Facebook page is Professor Cherry Ann Garcia Durante, and you can just come there and set up an appointment. We just want to help everyone that we can. And I think this YouTube is a platform that was given to us so that we can reach more people than we usually do with our borders, with our with our impact, with our territories. But because it's online, it's possible to help one another even you are far away from each other. So thank you so much for being with us. We value you so highly for just going through this webinar. For those who would want certificates, so just go to the links that we will show you, and you can do the post webinar evaluation. We'll open that for a couple of days after this webinar, probably until the 12th, and then we'll close it off so that we can give the certificates to the first batch of takers or watchers of this webinar. Thank you so much, and I hope that you will feel blessed as we are blessed as well. God bless you all. Goodbye.